If Connecticut's 174,000 college students lived on one campus, we'd be the largest city in the state, larger than New Haven, Hartford, or Bridgeport. We are a core Democratic constituency, voting 70% or more for Democratic candidates. But until 2 years ago, we had no statewide Democratic organization. It's been a long, long way since then. And today, I am proud to announce that we have hired a full-time field director to coordinate our efforts across the state. Leanne China, raise your hand. Over the next 53 days, Leanne will build a network of organizers and volunteers on targeted college campuses across the state. We're going to register students to vote, build an army of Democratic volunteers, and turn out students to vote. This year, we're going to take back Congress in Hartford, elect Ned Lamont to the Senate, and Connecticut's college students are going to pave the way.
I'm sure you have all heard the myth that young people aren't involved, that they really don't care about politics. But you're going to disprove that, and I thank you for that. Several months ago, Connecticut became the media flash for national and international news, and that's because of Ned Lamont. Ned Lamont did the unthinkable. He was able to unseat an 18-year U.S. Senator. John DeStefano is going to join Ned in doing the unthinkable. He's going to unseat a very popular but do-nothing governor. And, of course, Connecticut is going to make the difference for America because our three candidates, Joe Courtney, Diane Farrell, and young Dem, Chris Murphy, are going to make the difference and take back Congress. By the way, in case you don't know that, Chris Murphy today was giving the national Democratic response, the radio response to Bush's comments. So be sure and look for that on the Internet. And I heard he did a great job. So thanks, Chris. And again, with your help, on November 7th, Democrats can change America, change Connecticut, and you could disprove that myth that young people aren't involved.
I love being back at the University of Hartford. As maybe you heard, I spent a lot of time building telecommunications systems at college campuses for the last 20 years, and University of Hartford was about the first one we built. So it brings back memories. We built systems at all of your campuses as well, and I love doing it. More recently, we had a primary. It seems like an awful long time ago, but there were a couple of things that really resonated with me coming out of that primary. First of all, we registered 30,000 new Democrats. And we did that not because people were voting against somebody or against something, but we gave people something to vote for. And we need you to do that again. We need you at all of your college campuses to make sure everybody that can register. So I was joking to the folks from Wesleyan back there. I know a lot of your students come from other parts of the country. Look, the races in Connecticut are a lot more fun than where they're from, so come on and register. I'll tell you something else about the primary. We had the highest record turnout in the history of primaries in this state, 43%. A lot of people said, oh, my gosh, it's a primary. It's going to be a small group of jihadists who are taking over the party. That is nonsense. It was Democrats who turned out. It was Democrats who voted, and Democrats who said we want to bring real choice and a real change to what's going on in Washington, D.C., and I think that's what we do. This is how Democrats win. We got Joe Courtney. We got Chris Murphy, Diane Farrell down in my part of the state. And it's so important that Democrats win not just by being against something, but also saying what we're for. And we're going to go down there. We're going to change how they do business. Two things. Everybody knows Ned Lamont thinks it's time for us to bring our troops home from Iraq, that this president has made our country less safe in a dangerous world. We got to change course, and that's the best hope we have to keep America safe. We work with our allies, and we stay true to our values. And this president has compromised that every step of the way. Hey, I'm with you. I'll just say something that you often don't bring up. We don't bring up enough, but I think young people should be outraged. Instead of investing in our country and investing in our future the way our parents did with a national highway system and a GI Bill and a new university system, we're leaving young Democrats, we're leaving young Americans $8.5 trillion in debt. $8.5 trillion. That's the inheritance that you're going to get from this government. And we are turning it around under Bill Clinton, and it's going backwards again. It's going backwards again because the government in Washington, D.C. is broken. We've got double the number of lobbyists we had 5 or 6 years ago. We have 6,300 earmarks in the transportation bill. You're spending $250 million on a bridge to nowhere in Alaska. And I think young people in particular should be outraged because this is the legacy we're leaving you. And I think for our generation, the people standing here today, starting with Joe, starting with Chris, we're going to get our fiscal house in order. And I love it, the fact that it's the Democrats who are telling this to the Republicans, listen to us, we're going to get it right.
The New York Times on June 11th said it very clearly. If people in America want to see what the outcome is on election night on November 7th, they should look to Connecticut. If these 3 seats move, the earth moves. If these 3 seats do not move, the Democrats are toast. I would amend that statement. I wouldn't say that the Democrats are toast. I would say that this country is in grave peril. And I give you 2 very recent examples of why I think that statement is true. Last Saturday in the Wall Street Journal, George Bush gave an interview where he described his vision for this country with a new Congress if he holds on to a majority. And he made it very clear that his administration is going after Social Security privatization right out of the box in January of 2007. We know as Democrats and as Americans that the people of this country took a look at this president's proposal over the last 2 years and rejected it, and that's why it flopped in this Congress. But these guys do not stop. And, you know, some people may say, well, why are you talking about Social Security in front of a college Democratic group? The fact of the matter is that there is no group in America that has more at stake with George Bush's rush to privatize Social Security than people under age 30, because it is your retirement security that's going to be damaged irrevocably if he gets his way with Social Security private accounts. And the only way that we are going to stop that from happening is to take the Congress away from him and have a Democratic majority in both the House and the Senate. And the second example we saw this week was just yesterday with a press conference that the president gave where, unbelievably, he went after John McCain, John Warner, Colin Powell, Lindsey Graham, because they had the backbone to stand up and say, you know what, as a nation, we are not going to start changing the Geneva Conventions that we are signatory of since 1949 that was designed not to protect our enemies, but to protect us, to protect our troops, our men and women in uniform, intelligence operatives abroad. That's what the Geneva Convention was designed to protect. And when the Supreme Court this summer issued its order saying that the executive branch is bound to comply with the rule of law, that was perhaps one of the most profound moments in the last 10 years in this country, because it set up a warning flag that we have an executive branch that is out of control and we have a legislative branch that is asleep at the wheel. We need to change this Congress because it is very clear that these guys will lash out even at their friends, even at military conservative figures like Colin Powell and Lindsey Graham and John Warner. And again, the only way we are going to get the checks back in the checks and balances to have a Constitution that is functioning the way our framers wanted it is for the voters on November 7th to repudiate and reject George Bush's one-party control in Washington. And here in Connecticut, we have the duty as Americans to make sure that we get up every single day over the next 50 days to make sure that happens, so that when the world is watching us on November 7th, we're going to have good news, and we are going to lead the way to a new Congress and a new agenda for the people of this country.
Listen, it's fantastic to see you all here today. As Nancy DiNardo said, I still have the honor of calling myself a young Democrat. I've got 2 years left on that title under our young Democrat rules here in the state. But let me tell you this. When I first got involved in politics, when I first ran for office, I ran for the House of Representatives pretty much right out of college. I ran when I was 24, 25 years old. And I did it because I had deep disagreements with a very conservative right-wing incumbent that had represented my town for years. But I'll tell you why I also did it. I also did it because I looked around at my generation, the generation above and below me, and saw people that had been so turned off by politics, had grown so utterly and almost irrevocably cynical about politics, that I felt that there was some value in going out and showing people, showing young people, that just if you have a couple good ideas, a fire in your belly, that you don't have to wait in line, you don't have to get into the back smoke-filled rooms, that if you've got some energy and some ideas, you can go out and make a difference, that you can go out and be part of the solution. And I was lucky enough in that first race to win based on door knocking, based on showing up in people's backyards and front doors. And in essence, that's what all of us here are talking about doing this year. Because what our obligation is here is, just like Joe Courtney said, to restore some sense of decency to what's happening in Washington today, to finally put a check on this administration and hopefully actually start to move forward on some good ideas. But it's also to, I think, restore people's faith in politics a little bit. What is so enthralling to me about running with people like Joe Courtney and Dianne Farrell, with Ned Lamont and with John DeStefano, is that, as Ned said, this isn't just about what exists now and tearing it down. This is about building something back up again. This is about giving people a reason to vote for us and actually going to Washington with a mandate to do something different. And that's about making this country better, but that's also about making people believe in politics again. And when you're going to turn on the TV over the next 2 months, you're going to see something very different coming from the Republicans. If you look in one of the ads running in my district right now, there's a ad from my opponent, Nancy Johnson, that looks like it's from like Battlestar Galactica or something, claiming, that I sort of sit and eat lunch with terrorists on a regular basis. And this is the type of politics that I think people are already ready to reject, but guess what? There's going to be more of it. And they're going to say the same things about Joe. They're going to probably find a way to say the same things about Ned and about Dianne Farrell. And this is how we respond. Now, Joe and I have spent a lot of time raising money so that we can be up on the air responding. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to match them on the air, ad for ad, night by night. But we're going to beat these guys. We're going to beat these guys and win this election on the ground, in the field, in people's backyards, at their front doors, because of everything you do. We're going to match them on the air, but we're going to beat these guys on the ground. And that's where everybody in this place comes into play. It's not only you, but it's your friends that you convince to be part of this effort going forward. We're going to change America. We are going to finally set this nation on a course on foreign policy, on domestic policy, environmental policy, and energy policy that makes sense not only for now, but in the long term. What I talked about this morning when I was given the great honor, and in fact surprise, to be able to rebut the President's address this morning, I talked about the need to reform our Medicare prescription drug program. And just as Joe talked about how Social Security and the need to stop privatization of Social Security means so much to people in this audience, the same goes for this disastrous Medicare prescription drug program. Right now, because we have refused to allow the federal government to negotiate for lower prices with the drug companies, we have tripled the cost of the program, putting this country farther and farther into debt. If you want to talk about how you tackle the federal deficit, you talk about how you reform that drug program. That's what we talked about this morning. This is obviously a special audience for me to be in front of, but this is a special group of people to me to be standing here with, because we are going to win this race in November. We're going to change the course of this country, and in the process, we are going to reinstill people's faith in how politics works.